Why would you say that you're withholding support for Kamala because you think she's stupid, but you don't seem to be concerned that Trump, in your own words, was delusional in 2020?
Basically making the argument that delusion is a defense against everything in terms of negative intention or being labeled as an authoritarian.
You agree that there's a difference between someone who's delusional and someone who's authoritarian, right? This person could be the nicest person in the world. If they're delusional and acting on a delusion, they're not an authoritarian. They're doing the right thing.
The perfect example that you could have given for an authoritarian that was both delusional and authoritarian was Hitler. I mean,
Look, I'm done with this, okay?
Okay.
I'm literally done with you.
Friends, if you have a second or two, click like, comment down below. I would really appreciate it. Thank you guys, and I hope you enjoy the video. Apparently, Adam and Sitch broke up. Wait, what happened? What's going on here?
Okay, so if Donald Trump believes that is the situation, and he is doing the prudent thing, he's not an authoritarian, he's delusional.
Okay, so
there's a difference.
An authoritarian because he actually thought the Jews were coming after them, right? Yes.
I'm not going to litigate World War II, whether or not Hitler was delusional to make your point. That's like bad faith. That's bad faith.
It's not, because it's not bad faith at all. You're saying that just because they believe it's happening, that it's no longer authoritarian.
Did he mute him?
Sitch.
What just happened?
What happened?
He's making a bad faith argument. I'm not going to.
No. Wait.
How is that a bad faith argument? So I'm a little late. I mean, we're joining this debate whenever it happens, sort of mid-debate, but what I'm putting together from this conversation is it's a debate about whether or not Donald Trump legitimately thought the election was stolen. If he legitimately thought the election was stolen and he took the steps that he did, is it proper? Does it make sense to label him an authoritarian or a fascist? If he was willing to, try to circumvent the Constitution and our legal processes for deciding these elections in order to swing the race in his favor. If he legitimately thought the election was stolen, then I think Adam would have a point. That I don't know if you could necessarily throw the label authoritarian or fascist at him. But this is such a difficult thing to believe when you consider a few factors. When you consider the fact that basically everyone in Trump's orbit that had any credibility was telling Trump during the transition, we can't find this fraud that you're talking about. Bill Barr sent DOJ lawyers all over the country chasing down these claims. And he kept on telling Trump over and over again, hey, we've looked into these claims that you're making and we can't find this fraud that you're talking about. In Bill Barr's own words, he said it was, quote, bullshit. And Bill Barr was not the only one that was giving him this information. I mean, Trump had allies that were close to him that were telling him, like, listen, we just can't find what you're claiming to be the case. And these lawyers that you're sending around the country, Jenna Ellis and who's the one that said release the Kraken? What's her name? Sidney Powell and Rudy Giuliani. They're not presenting any evidence to substantiate any of these claims. So, and what did Trump do? He kept the people that were feeding him this bullshit, Rudy Giuliani and Sidney Powell, even though privately he was making fun of Sidney Powell and calling her crazy and saying like she belongs on Star Trek, according to the Jack Smith indictments. Even though privately he was saying that, he was still elevating her, pushing her messages. That is not someone who genuinely believes that the election was stolen. That's someone who is deliberately seeking out people that will be so loyal that they would make those claims despite not having any evidence. So Adam's entire premise here that Trump, well, he wasn't corrupt, he wasn't fascist, he wasn't authoritarian, he was just delusional. Number one, the premise itself is just so implausible when you familiarize yourself with the facts of the circumstances surrounding the run-up to January 6th and what happened on that day. And number two, it's not a strong endorsement of him in 2024. Adam, to my knowledge, has basically said like, well, it's a devil's bargain. I don't really like either candidate, but I'm going to vote for Trump because I think Kamala is stupid. It's like, well, okay, can we interrogate that a little bit? Like, why would you say that you're withholding support for Kamala because you think she's stupid, but you don't seem to be concerned that Trump, in your own words, was delusional in 2020? And because of that delusion, took unprecedented steps, corrupt steps, illegal, according to Jack Smith and Fani Willis, steps to maintain your stranglehold on power. How is that not disqualifying? You call Kamala's IQ into question, but Trump being delusional is not a problem? It just doesn't make any sense.
Wait, this is not a bad faith argument.
It is a total bad faith
No.
argument.
Hold on.
I'm not here to litigate.
Wait. Okay, this is what you do have to litigate, right?
There's a difference between litigating World War II and litigating something that happened 4 years ago that speaks to Trump's character, that speaks to Trump's psyche, that speaks to Trump's pathos, his psychology.
Basically making the argument that delusion is a defense against everything in terms of negative intention or being labeled as an authoritarian.
Yes, that's exactly
that is the argument that you're making.
Yes,
it's not.
It is.
Okay, so you agree that someone
you agree that there's a difference between someone who's delusional and someone who's authoritarian, right? This person could be the nicest person in the world. If they're delusional and acting on a delusion, they're not an authoritarian. They're doing the right thing.
Hold on. Sitch just accused Adam of using this delusional label as a shield from criticism. As long as you just say, well, Trump is delusional, then you can't criticize him for being authoritarian in 2020. And Sitch, accused Adam of that, and Adam denied it just like 30 seconds ago. And now he's doing that exact argument. He's saying there's a difference between an authoritarian and someone who's delusional. And therefore, you must logically deduce that because he was delusional, then those criticisms no longer apply. He's doing exactly what Sitch accused him of doing.
You literally agree with what he said.
No, hold on. Are you saying that someone who suffers from a delusion cannot be authoritarian? Because that's what you're saying.
No, I am not.
So give me an example of someone who is delusional and authoritarian by your definitions of these words.
That's not my argument.
No.
It is. God. It literally is, though. What? I don't understand. Like, does he even understand what his argument is? That's the question, is that you're saying Donald Trump is not authoritarian because he's delusional.
Someone who is an authoritarian is acting imprudently. They know that they're acting imprudently. They know that they lost the election and they don't give a f. They're like, f the system, the rules. It doesn't matter. I'm an authoritarian. I am the law. I am the state. That's an authoritarian. You agree?
So, well, Sitch's argument is that you can be both, which is true. We have legal processes by which the candidates can challenge the results of the election. You cannot step outside of those processes. You cannot circumvent the judicial system. The judicial system is what we use to adjudicate various claims of impropriety, illegality, and fraud with respect to elections. So if you think you have a case to make, if you think you have some evidence of fraudulent election systems in various states, you collect that evidence, you present it to a judge. That judge decides if you have standing. If you have standing, then you go to trial, and then it's decided in the courts. And if you lose that process, even if you were right, if you lose that process, you can still be authoritarian. Like you can, like, if you lose that process and then you just decide to do a military coup, that would be technically authoritarian, right? Now, maybe it's justified or whatever, but it would still fall under the umbrella of authoritarianism. And before Adam says this was clipped out of context?
I don't agree. No. Authoritarian is just someone who doesn't have respect for the laws, the Constitution, and was willing to sacrifice all those.
Right. So, and if you're wrong, like if Trump was like Trump was in 2020, but you delusionally convince yourself that you're right, which I don't think, to be clear, I don't think that happened. I think Trump knew he lost. But if you delusionally convince yourself and then you take steps to decertify the election or prevent the certification of the election, present false slates of electors, you are in that instance both delusional and authoritarian. The idea that you being delusional somehow shields you from the label of being authoritarian is pretty ridiculous.
Those things in favor of what they want or believe.
Okay, then we're using complete.
Yeah, exactly. Like the perfect example that you could have given for an authoritarian that was both delusional and authoritarian was Hitler. I mean, I mean, you can make an argument for all of them, right? Like you can make an argument for Hirohito in Japan. He thought he was like literally God, right? You can make the argument for Mussolini in Italy. You can make the argument for Pol Pot in Cambodia with the Khmer Rouge. Like you can make an argument for Stalin. Exactly. Like basically every despotic dictator throughout American history was delusional on some level. They were probably all like mentally ill in some way.
Completely different definitions of authoritarian.
Yeah, but so
well, what would Adam's definition of authoritarian be? Like literally an authoritarian is just someone who circumvents, like when I think of authoritarian, I think of someone who circumvents the laws to impose their will, like, you know, outside of the legal bounds of their authority. And they use force. They use force to ensure that they maintain power. That's kind of the cookie cutter version of that word, right?
So again, as I asked you, under your definition, you are saying that someone cannot be delusional and authoritarian.
Someone can be delusional and authoritarian, obviously.
Yes,
okay,
obviously.
So give me an example. So what does that look like?
Saddam Hussein mistakenly executes 50 of the wrong people because he thinks they're conspiring against him because he's delusional.
Okay.
Why is that authoritarian?
Because he is the law. He can do whatever he wants.
Yeah.
No, but so like what part of that? So the authoritarian part is the executing the people without trial? Is that the authoritarian part?
Yes.
I'm trying to ask you. I'm trying to figure out this.
Why is Adam getting so upset? I don't understand. Like the thing with Adam that confuses me is like, I don't know if Adam is dumb. Like I've seen some videos where he displays, you know, intellectual capacity. I wouldn't be comfortable calling him like stupid, but I've just seen and I've experienced it firsthand when I had a conversation with him, that he gets so upset if you interrogate his beliefs. So he was making the case to me and Josiah when we spoke with them maybe a month and a half ago that Trump was the lesser of two evils with respect to Kamala. And that's fine if you want to take that position, but they invited us onto their program so that we could have a conversation. Like that's like the whole basis for inviting someone to come on. And when you're in the line of work of what we do is, you know, the conversation is the content. And so if you invite someone to come on like they did with us, and then when we pressed Adam, he got kind of defensive and a little upset. We were sort of pointing out what we considered to be the absurdity of his logic, and we tested his logic by asking him certain questions. And for example, I believe one of the answers he gave was, well, that's the cool thing about living in America is like we can disagree. And we're like, what? Like, okay, that's cool. You're not telling us anything we don't know. Like, of course we can disagree. What we want to talk about is that disagreement. What we want to explore is that disagreement. We want to test that. And he got really upset. And then when I had a conversation with him, when it was just me solo and Sitch and Adam having a conversation for like, I feel like we spoke for like 2 hours or 2.5 hours. Similarly, whenever I wanted to test Adam's logic, he would get kind of defensive. He would get kind of upset. And it's like, I feel like you're in the wrong line of work if you're going to get upset when people test your logic. I don't really understand, like, why are you doing this for a living if you don't want to have these conversations, or if you don't seem to bother to be prepared to have these conversations? I mean, these are really kind of like, questions coming from Sitch right now are really logical, natural trains of logic, like these logic tests or whatever. They seem very kind of like obvious in this spot. And I guess Adam just he hasn't really thought about these questions very much. And he's saying like, well, I shouldn't have to litigate these issues. It's like, well, what do you mean? Like, what? he's just trying to figure out like how you got from point A to point B.
There's distinction here.
Look, I'm done with this, okay?
Okay.
I'm literally done with you.
Okay. So now what?
What? That's how it ended? He just ended the stream? Did he ever come back?
Ready?
Yeah.
At that point, I think you're
so he
like the
leaves
examples
about an
that I
hour
have
into the
generally are-
podcast.
I'm 35 now.
And distribute, or they would. Is
And he just
On this
didn't
one
come
we're talking-
back?
Studies looking into
I wonder if he has something going on in his personal life. I'm not trying to be a dick or whatever, but I wonder if there's like something else going on, because I feel like that's kind of bizarre to do that. Adam, if you ever watch this, I just, what I would want to ask you the next time we speak is, why do you not want to have conversations? Why do you not want to have conversations that test your logic? I don't understand. I thought that was like your whole thing. I just don't get it. Like, why would that upset you? It's fine to have these positions. I mean, we can disagree. I can think you're wrong about 1,000 different things or whatever. But if you think I'm wrong, I would expect for you to like explore my logic and try to poke holes in it and try to figure out if I have any blind spots, or if I'm missing anything, or if I'm doing some cognitive dissonance or whatever. That's just a part of this game. I don't understand why you get so upset about this. That's just inexplicable to me.